Welcome to A Re Buwe, a video series by the youth for the youth. This is where we speak to political party leaders and get to know them and get to have candid conversations with them. Today we are joined by someone who has been at the helm of the Blue Party from 2019. He took reins when the opposition party dropped in that year. However, it hasn't been easy and rosy. He faces a mean battle as people are calling for a reckoning. We are joined by Mr. John Steenhuisen.
Great to be with you and great to be with all your viewers as well.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So you are born and raised in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal. What do your former neighbors say when you walk the streets?
Well, I was a councillor there for 10 years, so a lot of people know me in Durban. And I suppose it's a lot of people want to greet and say hello, etc. And mostly a lot of people now talking to me about the future of the country and obviously the election going up. A lot of people are concerned about, is this going to be a free and fair election? What is the result going to be? Are we going to have a doomsday coalition taking place? Will coalitions be stable? So that's the main conversation these days. But generally, people stop and ask me how my daughters are doing and what I've been up to.
I do want to get to the coalition part right after this question. You enrolled in a BA in law and politics. Have you always known that you wanted to be a politician, and what influenced that decision?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be a politician. I've always believed in public service being the highest service. And I've always wanted to make a difference in my community. And I suppose what got me involved originally was I was part of a service club called Rotaract, which is like Rotary for 18 to 30-year-olds. So you finish Interact and you go to Rotaract. And a number of us became politically active through that. And I think it was a sense that you've got to give back to the community. Mm-hmm. And for me, public service is the best way to give back for what you have. I didn't finish my degree because I don't want to be dragged and accused of having all these people that say they've got degrees that don't have degrees. Yeah. I didn't finish my degree. I studied till third year, but I didn't complete it. But there was nothing I learnt about politics 1, politics 2, and politics 3 that had any resemblance to what politics is really like on the ground. So I've learnt through the trenches and through the hard yards about what it takes to succeed in politics.
Okay. And speaking of that, the DA is making a lot of promises. You're promising to fight against power cuts, stubborn unemployment, poor service delivery, and a whole lot of other things, right? So I want to understand, what practical steps are you guys planning on taking to tackle all these promises that you are making to South Africa?
Well, it's an excellent question, and I think it's an important question that voters will have to ask in this election. And that's what distinguishes our manifesto from other manifestos, is that we set out what we want to do, we set an apex priority, but we also then demonstrate how we're doing this where we govern. So let's talk about job creation, for instance. We've got a plan to create an enabling environment to attract jobs. 7 out of 10 young people cannot find work. We've got to do something about youth unemployment. And we then use the example of what we've done in the Western Cape. We've created 380,000 new jobs just last year alone. While other provinces are losing jobs, we're creating them. The same around load shedding and ending water shedding. We are 2 load shedding stages below the rest of the country and moving very, very rapidly to become the first province to be load shedding free in the Western Cape. And we obviously want to carry that through to Midvaal in Gauteng and Umgeni municipality in KwaZulu-Natal. So I think what people need to ask themselves in this election is this a party that's only making promises, or can this party back up the promises and undertakings with a record of action? And I think in that regard, the DA's manifesto offering in this election is unique.
Going back to what you spoke about, the coalition, the DA wants to lead a multi-party charter. How are those talks going? Are you having any talks?
Yes, well, the multi-party charter sort of kicked off April, May last year, and we started meeting regularly. We now meet every second Thursday as the leaders of the multi-party charter to talk around the high-level stuff. But in between, the week in between, we've got a technical task team that's meeting to look at synthesizing our programs of action. We've got a policy team that's working on looking for the commonalities in our policies and moving towards us being able to have positions on things like load shedding, unemployment, crime and criminality, youth involvement, etc. So we're able to synthesize our various policies together to put a MPC offering on the table, and we have a communication stream as well that focuses on looking for communications opportunities for us to communicate the work that we're doing. So it's going very well, and I'm very impressed with the maturity that's been shown amongst the leaders in that group, and it's been, I think, one of the most positive developments in politics in the last 30 years.
Okay, and you think that's the way South Africa should go?
I think so. I think that we are heading for a coalition environment after the election. All proportional representation systems, wherever they are in the world, eventually end up in a coalition. Yeah. And I think that we have reached a stage now where no party will get an outright majority at the next election. And I think that having different viewpoints and different ideas from different parties around a table strengthens the ability to find solutions. We've had one party sitting around the cabinet table for most of the last 30 years. I think it's going to be great to have different voices representing different constituencies sitting around a cabinet table, coming up with new solutions to the problems. We're not going to fix solutions and find solutions and fix our problems with the same people who created the problems sitting around the cabinet table, making the same bad decisions that end up in the same bad place. We've got to change who's sitting around there. And I think it's great to be able to say no party's got a monopoly on good ideas. Mm-hmm. The IFP have got great ideas. The ACDP have got great ideas. Action SA, wonderful ideas. Freedom Front Plus, the SNP, Isenco, and bringing all these parties around the table, I think strengthens our ability to problem solve because we're looking at problems through many different lenses, not just one.
Okay. You speak of change, and I want to take from that and speak about the 29th of May. The party rather, had called for the US and the EU to monitor elections, and you got a lot of backlash for that, and a lot of people slammed that, including President Ramaphosa, who said you are mortgaging South Africa to the US. I want to know why the US is being used as a yardstick. Why you're using it as a yardstick?
Well, first of all, it wasn't the US and EU only. We also invited AU countries, including 2 countries that have most recently had elections where there was a change in government, Kenya and Zambia. We're very, very keen for them to come through as well. It's not using them as a yardstick. In 1994, the ANC was very worried that the National Party was going to use its entrenched position in the state to somehow swing the election in their favor. And they made a clarion call at the time for international observers to come to South Africa and observe the process. We believe this is similarly a crossroads election, this 2024 election. Yeah. And there's a very good likelihood that for the first time, the outcome is not a foregone conclusion. And in the most competitive election in 30 years, the more international observers you have here, the better it is to have their eyes on it. Now, no democracy in the world is perfect, and the US is certainly not a perfect democracy. Yeah. But they're certainly a lot freer and fairer than places like Iran, where women are not allowed to do the job you're doing, and they're not allowed to participate in politics. There's other theocracies around the world that are equally oppressive. And so it is a case of compared to what? So countries that we look on the World Index of are regarded as mostly free are the countries that we believe should be coming here to exercise oversight. If the president's really serious about mortgaging the country, I think he's got a lot of answering to do on money coming from Russia and the Russian influence as well as the Iranian influence, where I think there's a lot more mortgaging going on than asking international institutions to come here. Parliament also sends international observer missions all the time. I've participated in a number of them. I was in the Kenyan election, and I went to observe the Somaliland election as well. as well as other elections around the world. It's a common practice, and particularly when you have some concerns about the IEC and their capability. I don't think that they are malign or malignant. I don't think that they're an evil organization, but I do think there are some challenges, and we saw how the party lists got leaked. The very first hurdle that the IEC had to protect the integrity of the list process was breached within the first day or two of those lists being lodged. I think that is a warning sign, and we need to make sure that we've got extra eyes on it. So it's not some malicious bring in foreign governments to influence the election. I think that it's in government's interest, if they win the election narrowly, to have international observers here that are able to say this was a credible result, so you don't have it being called into question. And equally so, if there is a change in government, I think it's important to have international community here to say, yes, this was a free and fair transition of power. And I think it's a healthy thing for democracies.
This sounds to me like you say you feel like the elections won't be fair. Is that the idea you're going with?
No, I think in politics you trust but verify. So I mean, we trust the IEC to do a good job, but we want to verify that that job is being done. And the only way you can verify it is ensuring that you have proper oversight of the process. The IEC, like any organization, my own included, is not perfect. They make mistakes. In one of the elections, I think it was 3 elections ago, the votes that we received at Benjamin Pine Primary School were recorded in another party's column. These mistakes happen, and I think the more eyes you have on the process, I think the less mistakes can happen and the more credible the result is.
Okay, coming back to the DA, you've said the previous leader, Andiswa Ngenyane, was too inexperienced to lead the DA. Do you think you are more experienced, and what do you think makes you experienced to lead our nation?
Yeah, so when I made that comment, I was referring to your ability to be able to navigate an internal political environment and an external political environment. Now, managing the internal environment is often a lot harder than trying to manage the external environment. You've got councillors, you've got MPs, you've got MPLs, you've got people that want your job. And I don't think Musi had spent enough time inside the organization to give him the experience to navigate those particular areas. And as a result, I think he made some unnecessary enemies. I think there were some unnecessary faults that were made. And I think had he been in the organization for longer, it would have allowed him to navigate that process a lot better. I've been involved in this party since I was 17 years old. I've served as a branch chair, an activist. I've been a constituency head. I've been a councillor, a member of the provincial legislature. I've been an MP. I've been a whip. I've been chief whip. And now I'm leader. And I do think that experience of having come through the organization and getting to experience it at each of its steps and to understand how the party works does give me a better grasp of being able to navigate that very important internal environment as well, which is why there's less infighting in the DA than ever before. There's less leaking than ever before. The party's moving cohesively towards this election with a common purpose. And I think that it's as a result of the experience that I've garnered through this period that's allowed me to be able to lead in this way. I didn't mean it to be a mean comment or a nasty comment, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's just an observation that people who come through the organization generally are able to lead it better. And that's why we invest so much in our Young Leaders program, where we bring in around 70 young people every single year. They're on a year-long program where they're exposed to the party, its values, its principles, its history, our program of action. And I think that has started to bear fruit. People like Saviwe Gahube, our chief whip in Parliament, a product of the Young Leaders program. Solly Malatsi, part of the Young Leaders program. Celias Brink, the mayor of Tshwane. Jordan Hill-Lewis, all graduates of this Young Leaders program. And I think it helps you build up the experience that you need within the party to be able to occupy a leadership position in the organization.
Okay. And a lot of people are of the idea that the DA is for the white people. This is something that people on social media have been saying. And still on Musi himself said he had some difficulties making it appeal to black people. How does the party speak to the lived experiences of black people?
Well, I want to just debunk that myth first of all, if I may. The DA gets around 21% of the vote. If we were a party only for the whites and we got every single white person voting for us, we'd only have 7% of the vote. The reality is the DA's support is made up roughly of thirds, and this was research done by the SRF. 1/3 black, 1/3 white, 1/3 coloured and Indian. So we're able to draw from that experience. I would say what makes the DA attractive is a track record of getting things done, particularly for poor black South Africans. The biggest beneficiaries of good, clean, accountable government are poor, marginalised South Africans. Wealthier people can outsource their children's education, their security, their health care to private hospitals, private schools, etc. Poor South Africans have to rely on the services provided by government, state hospitals, clinics, SAPS, state schools. And where these institutions work and work well and are funded properly and achieve the results, the biggest beneficiaries are poor black South Africans. And so we focus like a laser beam on service delivery because it is so important to us. The City of Cape Town's budget as well, 72% of that budget goes towards spending in previously disadvantaged areas. The 20 billion rand infrastructure budget for this year, 82% of that budget is going into previously disadvantaged areas so that we can help uplift people, give them a life of dignity, be able to improve running water and electricity, give people better access to housing closer to the cities and jobs. And I think that is going to be our offer going into this election, that you don't dream of a better life, you can vote for one. But if you don't vote, you can never change your life and your circumstances. And that's why it is important that particularly young people vote in this election in big numbers to make sure that their voices are heard loud and clear by all the political parties.
Sure. And speaking of young people, the average leadership in your party is like 53 years old. And there's people like us, Gen Zs, some are voting for the first time, some for the second time. Where is the representation for the younger people?
Well, I mean, if that's the average age of the DA caucus, jeepers, I mean, it must be up in the upper 70s for the ANC and other parties. We've got the largest number of young people in office, in Parliament. Siviwe Gahube, who's our chief whip, is leading the parliamentary caucus from the chief whip's benches. She's under the age of 40. She's in her early 30s. Matt Cuthbert, our head of policy, is just turned 30. Luolo Mpiti, Nazli Sharif, Sibongiseni Ngobo, Dean McPherson, all of these are young South Africans that are in Parliament. We don't believe in a gold watch when it comes to getting people into Parliament. And the list that I released today, there's many, many young, bright, talented South Africans that are coming to Parliament, and more than any other party. We believe in merit and ability to do the job, and we don't believe that young people should spend 25 years doing something else before they join politics. We think young people should be sitting around the table now. And that is why we invest so much in our Young Leaders program, and why we promote young people into leadership positions within the party. And as soon as they're ready to go, they're ready to go. We've had MPs as young as 21 in Parliament. And so we're committed to young people stepping up and leading. I don't buy the thing that this is the future leaders. We need young people to be leading and leading now, not waiting for the future, because the decisions we're making now are the decisions that are going to affect the world in which you grow up in and mature in. So why don't get around the table now and have these young voices there right from the beginning?
Yeah, got it. And I think that's it from my end. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Please join us again on the next one as we get candid with another one of your political party leaders.